This year, Nintendo finally gave its iconic princesses the royal treatment, putting both Peach and Zelda center stage in their own games. But with all due respect to the monarch of the Mushroom Kingdom, the head of Hyrule's adventure isn't just another second-tier spin-off. In every way that matters, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is the next mainline 2D Zelda game. It takes all of the linear dungeon crawling and key item style progression I've missed from the older games in this series, and perfectly combines them with the ridiculously clever freeform problem solving that made Tears of the Kingdom so captivating. It doesn't always take this exciting step forward with unflappable royal grace, but it's still easily become one of my favorite Zelda games, with or without a green tunic on my back. While there are plenty of substantial mechanical changes to the way Echoes of Wisdom plays compared to its predecessors, the practical differences of this main character switcheroo are actually pretty negligible, to the point where I legitimately forgot I wasn't playing as Link at times. Perhaps the most surprising difference, however, was how it makes the story that much more engaging. Rather than being yet another remix of a destined mute swordsman's journey to save the day, Zelda is the central character of the plot. As a result, I felt much more important and involved as I explored Hyrule to seal the mysterious purple rifts that were forming across my kingdom. Of course, the most consistent reminder that you aren't Link is the way Zelda interacts with that world and fights the wide variety of enemies within it. Thanks to her little floating friend named Tri, you have the power to create echoes of any enemy you defeat and an array of specific objects you come across. That means defeating a moblin once will let you summon it to automatically fight for you in the future, and you'll frequently create beds, boxes, and even trampolines to clear gaps or climb ledges as you explore. The menu you use to swap between them does quickly balloon into an annoying to navigate pile of stuff, but it's so cool that the number of echoes you actually have out at the same time is only capped by an upgradable point system that was always fun to strategize around. Echoes encourages the same go ahead and break our game creativity that Nintendo embraced with Breath of the Wild and doubled down on with Tears of the Kingdom, but this time in a 2D Zelda game. One that borrows the Link's Awakening remake's delightfully toy-like art style and occasional side-scrolling segments, as well as a bit of its inconsistent frame rate, which isn't wildly distracting, but does also sort of feel inexcusable at this point. Where's that Switch to, Nintendo? Look, I get it if the ecosystem sounds far too quirky to be considered anything but an experimental spin-off. But the reason it's able to stay so distinctly Zelda is because many of these echoes essentially act as classic key items. You may not have a hook shot, but this floating floor tile can let you clear large pits in a similar way. There's no shovel this time, but a little mole friend will happily dig up secrets for you. And Skyward Sword's Gust Bellows isn't back, but holding a wind cannon above your head will clear away piles of sand just as well. The fact that so many of the most useful echoes are either tucked away in optional caves or found in dungeons gives Echoes of Wisdom a sense of progression I missed in Breath of the Wild and its sequel. You still have immense freedom to explore where you want and solve problems in unexpected ways, but I love that you also have that classic Zelda feeling of leaving most dungeons with something new in your pocket. Like this water block, which fundamentally changed how I moved around the map. Puzzle rooms in Echoes of Wisdom also make great use of the absurd range of options you're given. Seeing a chest just out of reach would get my mind racing right away as I thought back through the exhaustive list of stuff I could summon that might help me out. That could be as simple as creating a monster to hit a switch for me, or as weird as stacking multiple things in just the right way to press a button from afar. There's rarely one right answer, and the aha moments are plentiful. The one place Echoes of Wisdom doesn't really benefit from being built entirely around summons is combat. While puzzles really are more of the focus this time around, there's essentially just as much combat as ever as well, and summoning a few echoes only to watch them slowly attack your target isn't necessarily thrilling stuff. This is coming from someone who typically loves playing as summoning classes in games like Diablo or Frosthaven. But in those instances, you usually aren't just spawning in a few dudes and then sitting on your hands until they finish the job as much. You do get some faster or harder hitting options. This P-Hat was an early favorite of mine, for example. And fights are by no means unpleasant or anything like that. But swinging a sword as Link is still just fundamentally more fun. Thankfully, Zelda isn't a helpless damsel who relies entirely on others to fight for her. She literally has Link's sword and can swap to sword fighter mode to attack directly. However, your energy bar drains while in that form, and that resource is limited enough that you can't rely on it too heavily. The bar can be upgraded, but running out in the middle of a harder fight or a boss can be a real hassle if you don't have any energy recovery items on hand. So I was always a little cautious about when I chose to pull out my blade. That means your combat options are essentially letting someone else handle fights or taking matters into your own hands with the pressure of a ticking clock. Both of which are entertaining, but not to the same buttery smooth degree that Echo's improve exploration and puzzle solving. To be fair, combat does get a little more interesting later on thanks to the completely optional and surprisingly easy to miss automaton system. This small selection of buildable robots don't cost any points to pull out of your pocket, but you can only use one at a time. They then need to be wound up manually before they start doing their job, and you'll have to pay to repair them if they take too much damage. The payoff can be worth it though, with options like a sword-wielding moblin with a deadly slice, and a Deku Baba that eats enemies whole. That makes them a pretty neat high-risk, high-reward option, and gives you a little more to do after summoning Echoes in combat without having to spend any energy. One other way automaton power is balanced is that you have to complete a series of side quests to unlock them, and Echoes of Wisdom has a lot of side quests. While it took me roughly 23 hours to roll credits, you could certainly make it there much faster if you're just mainlining the story. My playthrough was fairly comprehensive, completing every quest I could find and hunting down collectibles, but I also wasn't shooting for 100% completion. Going out of my way always felt worth it, be that because of the tangible rewards I would get or the useful new echoes I might find. There are charming characters and stories to encounter too, as well as multiple entirely optional mini-dungeons with unique bosses. Exploring Hyrule in search of these extras is one of the clearest places that Echoes of Wisdom feels like a Zelda chimera, an explicit hybrid of A Link to the Past and Tears of the Kingdom. Longtime fans will notice that parts of the map are nearly exact replicas of the SNES terrain, while other areas have defining features of the Breath of the Wild map right where you would expect them to be. The Zora are even split into two tribes, one with the fishtail heads of their modern design, and the other with the finned faces of the ones that would pop out of the water to attack you more than 30 years ago. In that way, Echoes of Wisdom feels like Nintendo fully embracing both the past and the present of Zelda, mixing what this series used to be and what Breath of the Wild so abruptly pivoted toward into a single game that makes the best of both halves. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is far greater than some gimmicky spin-off led by Zelda instead of Link. Its echo summoning is used to cleverly combine the expertly crafted dungeons, puzzle rooms, and item progression you'd expect from a classic-style 2D Zelda game, with the borderline unhinged freedom provided by Tears of the Kingdom. This experiment doesn't produce an entirely perfect result, with a little bit of clunky menu management and combat that simply isn't quite as compelling, but it's an impressively successful one all the same. Echoes of Wisdom is also a glowing proof of concept for how a modern 3D Zelda game could recapture some of what fans like me miss about the series before Breath of the Wild without sacrificing the intoxicating creativity it introduced. Creating echoes aside, if this is the future of Zelda, I can't wait to see more. For more adorable action adventures, check out our reviews of The Plucky Squire or Astrobot. And for everything else, stick with IGN.